Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun and interesting episode for you guys this evening because we're going to be talking about a PlayStation 2 decompilation and recompilation project that wasn't active development. It seems to have idled a little bit, but even if the developer isn't actually working on it, the code base is available on GitHub, and he has stated that anyone can pick up that work and kind of run with it. And we don't know if the developer is going to come back to start, but we've been talking a lot about decompilations and recompilations on the channel recently, and just how incredible they are and how I feel like it's going to be the future of retro gaming preservation moving forward. So we're going to talk about what was going on with PlayStation 2 today. And if we take a look at the developer's GitHub page, PS Retrox here, the PlayStation 2 decompilation recompilation tool basically blew up in the news about 72 hours ago, and they stated that because of that blowing up in the news, they wanted people to know that they weren't actively developing yet. It's been like 5 months since they updated the code base. But the nice thing is they said anyone's free to use and explore the code however they want with no restrictions whatsoever, and it's not like they might not come back to the project either. It is a great base for the future of PlayStation 2 decompilation and recompilation, and it really isn't surprising that this thing basically hit every gaming news site out there, and obviously I want to talk about it because we've been talking a lot about decomps and recomps here on the channel. But that's the great thing about open source code as well as GitHub. It allows you to fork the project over, use the code base from the actual GitHub repository, and then improve upon it. We'll go over the progress in just a bit. And honestly, decomps and recomps are basically the new frontier compared to software emulation, and I'm super excited to see where this ends up going. Because last month we took a look at Sonic Unleashed, the recompilation for PC, and it's just leaps and bounds above anything you've ever played for this game. And not to knock software emulation, I talk about it on the channel all the time and absolutely love it. It's one of those things, recompilations just end up with a better work product in the end, because you're really just porting the game to a modern platform, being able to have those modern enhancements and a ton of other quality of life improvements, because Sonic Unleashed has never looked this good on any system whatsoever. It was insane when I first demoed this in the video. I was so impressed with it, and imagine getting PlayStation 2 games with the same overall performance. Sure, you're not going to have the same level of polygons in the models because it was still developed for PlayStation 2, but you could have basically every single PlayStation 2 game decompiled and recompiled for modern platforms like PC, and you could just play them as long as you wanted to. Well, that really is kind of the future, and it's not like PlayStation 2 emulation isn't very mature at this point in time. PSX2 is absolutely outstanding and gives us a lot of improvements, and I would say Xbox 360 emulation, it's getting there, but it's not quite there yet. But playing something like Burnout on PSX2, you can definitely improve it over the base game as far as using real hardware is concerned. It does keep the games alive. But it's one of those things, if you could go to decomp and recomp status of PlayStation 2 games, you could enhance it even more. You could put in different features, different menu options. You could allow it to raise the frame rate up to 120 frames per second, 240 frames, completely decap the frame rate and let it run as fast as your GPU and CPU would handle it. That's the type of stuff that a decomp and a recomp gives us that most software emulators don't. You might be able to get a couple extra frames with some patches, but it doesn't exactly work that way. And you'll see it was still in its infancy, but that is a lot of good progress, especially on the MIPS disassembly here. And these are not easy projects whatsoever to actually be able to do this. If we take a look at the features, we'll kind of go over what the decompilation is actually doing here, because it basically is reverse engineering all of the code as well as the files for something that a modern PC environment could understand. And that means a lot of different things, like taking the PS2 ISO file and being able to decompile it and getting all of the associated files that would be in that ISO out. And additionally, it means recompiling all of the different code into C so that a modern coding environment would understand it, be able to compile it. And it also means being able to code all of the custom audio tracks into a standard like MP3 or WAV, because when you hear something like this coming out of PlayStation 2,
you win!
Were you looking forward to winning? Oh, I'm sorry.
you aren't really hearing an audio file that would be any sort of standard that you could just open up on your PC, like an MP3 or a WAV or any of the other exotic files that your PC can still handle. And that's the thing about these consoles, they really do use their own file formats and their own compression algorithms and their own ways to basically pack up all of the files that make up the game, not just the code, and be able to actually execute it on the platform. You also have to extract all of that model data and then basically convert it into something that 3D modeling programs would be able to use. It's taking every every single bit of information, all of the custom file formats and packing techniques, and then decompiling them out into something that you can actually use on a PC, a Mac, or Linux today. Although honestly, I don't know if it's Mac compatible. I'm just trying to tell you modern operating systems and modern hardware. And of course, you have to recompile this all into something like C to be able to actually compile the game and play it. And that's what you see in something like the recompilation of the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. You're taking all of the code base, all of the assets, and everything that would be in the build on the cartridge for Nintendo 64, and then you're converting them over and porting them to a modern platform. That's why you get stuff like so many amazing quality of life improvements and actual settings in the menu, because you're basically just adding them into the base game because you now have the code. And I would say that the Nintendo 64 Recompiled project really kind of kicked off all of this recompilation effort, at least in people's consciousness. I did a couple of videos on Majora's Mask, and I hope that we see more Nintendo 64 recompilation soon, because the tool does exist out there to decompile and recompile games, but it is kind of game by game dependent. I don't want you to think that this is some sort of magic wand where you put an ISO file into a box and say execute, and then suddenly you get a game that runs out of the other end. Or something like Goemon here, another recompiled game for Nintendo 64 that works on PC. The outstanding improvements that you get in these games, the better frame rate, the better textures, the 16:9 support, the free camera with a second analog stick, just 100% make these games feel new, fresh, and like they came out in 2025, just with a retro aesthetic versus something like having come out in the 90s. And I would say Majora's Mask has definitely been everyone's favorite recompilation so far, but leave me a comment down below and you tell me, of all the recompilation games you played so far, which one has been your favorite? For me, it's definitely San Francisco Rush, but I'm an arcade racing fan. And that's the exciting thing. Even if this isn't in active development, it is the start of a project that can go further, and we really hope that that does happen. Now, as far as the recompilation in and of itself is concerned, I know this trips a lot of people up, so I'm going to just basically explain it the best way I can, trying to not be too technical so you understand what it means to change up a code base. And this is just basically information from the Nintendo 64 recompilation tool. Different processors have different instruction sets and different ways of writing code. C is kind of the most ubiquitous code that people know in their heads, even if they don't know anything about code, but there's so many different languages out there, including assembly. So something like the Nintendo 64 recompilation is going to take a command like this, which would be something that would process on that MIPS CPU, and it's going to translate it into a proper C environment command or line of code. It basically is doing the exact same thing, it's just doing it in a slightly different manner. That way a modern CPU and a modern operating system would understand what to do with it. Just think about trying to talk to somebody in a language you don't speak. You're going to need a translator, and that's what these recompilation projects are. They are translations of one code base to the other, and they're also situations where all of the other files are translated into workable file formats that you'd be able to use in any sort of modern tool set. And it's just going to be that much more fun moving forward, because we have recompilation, decompilation tools for Nintendo 64. We obviously have them for the arcade on the San Francisco Rush front, and we also have the Xenon Recomp tool, which gave us Sonic Unleashed on modern platforms. And just think of every single Xbox 360 game, or every PlayStation 2 game, or every Nintendo 64 game could have this exact same treatment. It makes it look that much better, it makes it plays that much better, and it makes it sound that much better. And because I love the soundtrack to Sonic Unleashed, and I have been talking about audio, it's the only sound sample in the video. 45 seconds and I'll be right back with a little bit more PlayStation 2 fun. I mean, that looks outstanding, it sounds outstanding, and it plays outstanding, and that's what we could have for PlayStation 2 moving forward as well, because even if the developer has paused his own development, you can take this code and do whatever you want with it, which means other PlayStation 2 developers and fans out there will run with this at some point in time. And even though PCSX2 is absolutely amazing, having decomp and recomp tools for pretty much every platform out there is going to help retro gaming stay alive into the future, and it's going to bring us a ton of exciting things. But I am curious, if you could snap your fingers right now and magically make one PlayStation PlayStation 2 game reappear as a recompiled port like we saw in Sonic Unleashed, what would it be? I'm sure I'm going to hear a lot of different and fun answers down there, but for me, I think I would get Silent Hill 3 as well as Silent Hill 4 The Room. I'd love to see those in a modern environment. But next time there's more decomp, recomp news, we'll definitely talk about it, because I can't tell you everything I know, but I do know that there's at least one new recompilation project that you'll probably see by summer that everyone's going to be absolutely stoked about, and you can take some guesses in the comments down below. But we're done. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.